Hello, this is Annie. I'm continuing my renovations in Veronaville, and this time it was time for Regan, Cornwall and Kent, as they're starting out together in the same house. And for this family, I continued on with sort of the side road leading down from the Capp manor. And as I mentioned in the previous video, when I renovated a house to the right side of this, I have decided to make this part of Veronaville sort of owned by the Capp family. So it was pretty natural that this house was gonna belong to this family. And interestingly enough, we also have one of these houses having the entrance pointing straight up to the Capp manor. So I think that these houses have been connected in some kinds of ways for a very long time, and perhaps that the house that Goneril has moved into has been maybe not as old, or maybe it has belonged more to servants rather than family before this. It has been quite extensively renovated after all. But in contrast, I wanted this house to look pretty much the same as it did from the start. The only exception being, of course, that I removed the sort of the balcony and pathway connecting the two houses together, because I wanted that to be an open space so that the cars could pass through, visually at least, so that they can drive up and park behind the house. That made sense to me, and that also allowed me to split up the house into two so that Kent could actually have his own little house on the same lot. And I think that that makes a lot of sense, not only because Regan and Cornwall are a married couple, of course, and they probably want their privacy. Kent and Cornwall are also not friendly with one another, so I think it's gonna be a good idea to split the two of them apart. And I'm gonna utilize the lockable doors, and also a mod that allows you to have keys for different sims. So I have actually gone ahead and locked the doors to this house that I'm working on right now, so that only Regan and Cornwall can access it, and then the other smaller house that's gonna belong to Kent is locked only for him. So that's gonna make it a little bit easier, because I'm gonna be putting in kitchens in both of these houses, and if I don't do that, then they're gonna want to use each other's houses for those kinds of autonomous actions. So that's what I have done. And of course, if they are going to visit each other or talk with each other, they can do that in the shared communal area, like in the backyard, or I can temporarily unlock the doors, of course, as well. And that's something that I'm gonna have to work with as well if they have visitors coming over. Either that I'm gonna give a key to the visitors. That's gonna be limited though, because I can only give out 4 keys in total. So it all really depends. I mean, maybe if I have some sims who are only gonna be Kent's friends, like Bianca Monti, for example, then she can have a permanent key to his house. But then if I'm gonna have like a family dinner or something, I can just unlock the doors. That's gonna work well. So I decided to pretty much keep the layout of these houses exactly the same as it was from the start. And that mostly is because I love the way this house looks. I've always loved this house. There's several of these kinds of houses in Veronaville, of course, but there's something about it that just has so much character. And I really adore the way that this house in particular is put together. So I didn't want to change it too much. I wanted to keep its integrity. So the only thing that I did is, this is one of the things that you're seeing right now on screen, that the staircases were put down a little bit awkwardly, so the bottom step was elevated a little bit. That's an issue that you can see in some of the pre-made houses, like the Caliente condo in Pleasant View, for example, as well, and Don's condo as well, that the staircases are sitting a little bit awkwardly. So I wanted to change that out, and then of course I realized that Maxis had cheated when they put down the staircases from the start, because they only had 3 tiles open on the upstairs level, But of course you need 4 for a staircase. This kind of staircase anyway. If you put down the sort of the ploppable staircase, then you can get away with only having 3 tiles available, but not for this kind of modular stairs. So I had to fiddle around with the bathroom upstairs for that reason. And of course I'm gonna do the same thing in Kent's house as well. And I made this a little bit of a mix between the styles of the different houses that I have built so far. You know, the window and door set that I'm using is the same that I used for Goneril and Albany's house as well. That ties together with that, and then I'm gonna use sort of the same kind of paneling that I've been using for the Tudor houses, of course, but in a different color. And then for the outside walls, I'm going to be using the same stone that I used for the university building. So I tried to make a few combinations here and make the whole neighborhood somewhat tie together in the decision of what materials to use and colors and so on. Because I also want to make some sort of connection with the Monty side of this neighborhood. And you see this floor tiling that I have decided to keep in this house. It's actually the same floor tiling that's in the Monty Ranch. So that's also a fun parallel, I think, tying the houses together, even though maybe they shouldn't be connected that much. If you look at the family drama, at least, that is. And of course, this sort of wooden paneling in some of the rooms as well. And in this house, I actually decided to make it appear a little bit more dated than Goneril's house. And again, I think I thought more of that these houses rather would be older and having belonged to the Capp family for a longer period of time. Maybe other Capp descendants who were not the heirs have lived in these houses previous to this as well. But then the house that Goneril and Albany live in might have belonged to some of their servants or something, or maybe it was just so small that she had to make extensive renovations on it or something. So that feels a lot more modern than these houses. And I think that the choice in wallpapers really shows that. So as for this family then, I have been looking into sort of the Shakespearean story of Regan, Cornwall and Kent. And of course they're all part of the same play, King Lear, the same play that Goneril and Albany are also part of, and Cordelia of course. And well, it's easy, I feel like, to mix together Regan and Goneril because they're sort of working together and having the same opinions in many ways. And basically they are sometimes interpreted as villains and sometimes not. I've understood it now that I've looked a little bit further into the story. Basically what happens is that the kingdom is going to be split into 3 parts, and they have, it's supposed to be equal. And they already have marriages and pieces of land that they rule over. And of course, King Lear is still the king of the kingdom. But after the first scene in the play, when, basically they have some sort of ceremony, and Regan and Goneril have to proclaim their love to their father ceremoniously in order to prove that they are worthy of inheriting a third of the kingdom, and that they love him basically. And they are doing so very profusely and saying that he's the best thing in the world basically. And Cordelia is not thinking that they are sincere, and when she responds during this ceremony, she is telling King Lear that she can't say anything basically. And there's a big misunderstanding and things are blown out of proportion in some ways. And after Cordelia has been disinherited and gone off to marry the King of France, Goneril and Regan have this short discussion that they are worried about the mental state of their father. And of course, that's sort of what the play is about, that King Lear is slowly losing his mind and becoming a raving lunatic. And yeah, in some interpretations, this can be perceived as them scheming against him, wanting to take power. But then again, it can also be a very, like, just a worry that they're having, and that they just want to protect their part of the kingdom, or their the things that they are ruling over. If he's losing his mind, he can start to make trouble for them, basically. And indeed, that's sort of what happens as well. So yeah, it's not really cut clean that they are villainous characters. But then I've also learned a little bit more about Cornwall, because apparently, well, it's hard to talk about King Lear without mentioning some very important characters here, but there's no sim counterparts for these characters, and those are, well, mainly Edmund, but also Edgar, his brother. So Edmund is a bastard son, I think, of Gloucester, that character, and he is mainly the villain in the story, I would say. He is the one who's scheming and putting people against each other, and Cornwall is somewhat connected to him, you could say, because he is... oh yeah, I'm just going to mention what I'm doing on screen here. I'm putting in some invisible fences to screen off the front of the house and the back of the house. And that way I can sort of steer how the Sims will move on the lot. So if they are appearing with the cars in the backyard, they're going to have to use the back doors. But then if they have visitors coming, the visitors will only use the front doors. And also, like, the newspapers and things will also be put down by one of the front doors by having invisible fencing screening off the backyard. So that was what I did back there. But anyway, Cornwall is somewhat involved with this Edmund character, and he gouges out someone's eyes at some point. So he's a bit ruthless, I guess, and that really makes me think about what I'm gonna do with Cornwall and Regan in the Sim story. Because, well, I do have this plotline that I've been thinking about, that Goneril is gonna be somewhat involved in her sister's death. And I had been thinking that Regan was going to also be involved, but then I learned this about Cornwall, so now maybe it's mostly Cornwall who's been involved with this. Maybe he's the one who has been sort of doing some of the dirty work or something. And then, interestingly, we also have Kent, of course, the youngest child in the Capp family. And in the story, he is actually defending Cordelia at the start of the play. And because of that, he is banished from the kingdom by King Lear. And he returns in disguise and becomes Lear's advisor. And I don't know if there's any other Star Kid fans out there, but that really reminded me of the Holy Musical Batman and the way that they're portraying Alfred the butler. That he is fighting with Batman and is sent away and then returns in a very flimsy disguise. Batman doesn't recognize him. That's sort of how I envision this being for how it would look in the play as well. I've actually tried to find a movie version of King Lear, and there are a few to choose from, but annoyingly enough, I haven't been successful in finding one that I can purchase online. So yeah, and none of the streaming services that I have it either. and I couldn't find it to rent on YouTube either, so I've been struggling a little bit, but I have been looking into summaries and been leafing through my Shakespeare book as well. So yeah, that's sort of what's running through my mind at the moment. So with that backstory for Kent, I'm thinking that he was probably very, very close with Cordelia. He's of course living with Regan now, and I did see in the relationship that he's close with her. So I think that if Regan would have been involved in Cordelia's death and Kent was somewhat aware, then he wouldn't be very happy with Regan. Of course, he detests Cornwall, and I think that might be because he knows that Cornwall has been involved somehow. Maybe he walked in on him doing something or whatever, and Cornwall is sort of fearful that Kent will reveal what he did. So that has sort of destroyed their relationship in a way. So that's what I'm thinking at the moment. But looking outside of the Shakespearean story, I have also been thinking about what to do with the family itself, because as I've mentioned in previous videos, I am going to age the siblings quite a lot. And Cornwall and Regan are starting out being childless, as opposed to Goneril. And with them becoming a lot older, I also kind of figured that maybe they have been trying to have children but have not been successful so far. And as I was furnishing this house, there was this empty bedroom upstairs that I didn't really know what to do with. So I ended up putting in a very sad, half-furnished child's room in there. And I figured that maybe there was a child on the way at some point and they were preparing to become parents, but then Regan had a miscarriage. And then, they have not been successful after that point. So that's sort of the story that I'm going to go with for them. And that they very dearly want children, but that they have trouble with conceiving. So that's sort of what I'm going to go with. And as you can see, I did some strange stuff here with the bathroom, because I was looking through the different bathrooms that they have in this house, and they actually have plenty of bathrooms, 3. But the issue was that there was no space big enough for a bathtub. And I was thinking that, well, if they're getting a dog or if they have a toddler, they're gonna need to have a bathtub somewhere, you know? So I decided to extend this bathroom, making it a little bit awkward, but I just figured that it's gonna be necessary in this house. And that allowed me to just have a little cloakroom downstairs here with just a toilet, and then a shower in the smaller bathroom upstairs, and then a big bathroom with a bathtub. So that worked out slightly awkwardly. And then we have the entrance, and this actually became probably my favorite room in this house, like the combination of the entrance, the sort of the small hallway leading up to the dining room, and also the dining room itself. Just sort of became a very nice space, and that was not something that I had imagined would be the case, because often these kinds of spaces where the Sims just sort of walk through to get from one place to another can be a little bit awkward, but you know, with furnishing in this way, it actually turned out quite nice. And I know that both Cornwall and Regan are fortune Sims, so I imagine that they are extremely focused on work. And so I put in some these suitcases and things that I thought would make sense for them to have close at hand as they are traveling back and forth between the office and home. And well, I guess that depending on what I decide to do with the family business, I guess that at least Reagan is going to be connected to it somehow. And, well, I am thinking that I'm going to create a family restaurant for them, but I don't think that I want the Capps to be working in the restaurant. I think that for the Monty clan, that they are going to be working there, because we have Anthony, of course, already in the culinary career, and also the teenagers, Romeo and Mercutio, are both also in the culinary career. And yeah, I think that both Antonio and Isabel are retired from the culinary career. So yeah, I'm pretty sure that they are very hands-on when it comes to their business, but I don't imagine that the Capp family would be. So I'm probably gonna just set that up and have one of them sort of run the restaurant business. I haven't decided who should do that yet. And then I'm gonna employ townies basically, or maybe some of my playables, well, the previous townies that I made playable. I'm gonna have to think about that. But then if I'm gonna make Regan and Cornwall part of the business, I think that Regan would probably be like a bookkeeper or something. Like she's on the financial side of managing the business. And I think that she probably has a lot to do with sort of the winery as well, if I'm gonna put that together. Like they have a vineyard, and yeah, she is managing the sales and so on. I think that would make a lot of sense, actually. And whether Cornwall is going to be part of the same business or not, I'm going to have to keep thinking about. Not sure yet. Of course, Kent is going to be part of the university, though, so he has his own career thing going on. And I think that that also ties together a little bit with the Kent story in the Shakespearean drama. Because, of course, he's banished from the kingdom at the start. And not that he was banished from the family business, I don't think, but he chose a completely different path and sort of exiled himself from that. So yeah, that's a nice parallel, I think. It's going to work out well. So yeah, I know that this kitchen is really, really, really tiny and awkward, but for some reason, I just love it. I don't know, it just, as I said in the beginning, this house has so much character. And I just love the way that that looks. So I was happy that I could keep that and still be able to fit everything. Now this living room is was one of the hardest rooms to furnish, actually. Because I had similar issues in this house as I had in Goneril and Albany's house, that it was difficult to figure out a good layout with a good size sofa and a natural place to put down the TV furniture. But I ended up going with this space because I couldn't imagine anywhere else that it would work. But then this sort of the space behind the sofa is going to be quite awkward. So yeah, you're going to see how I resolve that later. But yeah, this TV furniture that I'm putting down didn't have a slot in the middle of it, so I couldn't center the TV. So I ended up putting down some surface blockers onto the furniture itself. And then I am putting down the TV onto a shiftable OMSP. And here I'm also matching out with the height of the table surface. So that actually makes it so that when the Sims are moving around here, placing down stuff randomly, they're not going to put down a newspaper or something onto this table because there's a slot blocker on it. And I put in a guitar in the corner here. I have no idea if any of the Sims are going to be interested in music, but I just felt like maybe someone down like in history or something, one of the ancestors who were really, really interested in playing music. And yeah, so now I'm moving on to this space behind. And yeah, I put in the bookshelf here, but that also made it so that the walking space between the sofa and this bookshelf was very, very slim. I'm gonna have to try out if this actually work or if they can't pass behind that. Maybe I have to change the bookshelf out for a smaller one or something. But for now, this is what it's ended up looking like. And I'm keeping up the new technique that I'm using with putting down plants and such things only next to windows. And I think that adds a little bit of realism to this. Now this upstairs area, the only thing that I could think of putting here was sort of office furniture. So I placed down yet another bookshelf here. I really put down so many bookshelves in this house, but yeah, I guess that really ties together with the sort of the vibe for the more aristocratic family, that they don't have, like, they have a lot of books that has been passed down through the generations. And I guess they're storing some of them here. But then, yeah, neither Cornwall nor Regan are knowledge sims, really. It really is Kent who is. But I think I put down quite a few bookshelves for him as well. So I think it's fine. Yeah, this part of the house is actually quite special to me, because I remember playing Veronaville back then when I was at university, and just binge played through generations, 7 days at a time. And there was this very, very special family that I had where the father had been married in the past. Then his wife passed away, and they had, I think, at least 2 sons together. And then while the father was like middle-aged or something, he married a quite young wife. I think she was only just an adult or something. And then, yeah, they lived through their life together as the sons were starting to age up and so on. And yeah, at some point the father died of old age. And the second that he had died, his eldest son, who was an adult at that point, marched up to his stepmom and kissed her, and they fell in love. And that memory is just so strong, because that happened right at the top landing of that staircase. I don't know if it was exactly this house, but it was one of the houses that looked like this. I remember that so strongly, that I was so outraged by that turn of events all of a sudden. So yeah, that particular part of this house has a very strong memory for me. And I mean, that really feels like it has the Shakespearean theme, doesn't it? Oh well. So I've moved on to Kent's part of this lot. And his style is going to be quite different from Regan and Cornwall's more traditional approach. He has some more modern furniture and a lot less expensive things. That's actually something that I thought about when I put in, what car the different sims would have. And Kent's car is far cheaper than the others and far smaller. So I think that Kent is... well, he's not... Well, since the Capp family is matrilineal, Kent would be, well, obviously one of the children and a beloved child, but he wouldn't be considered like one of the potential heirs. So I don't think that he has access to as much money as the others do. Like, his inheritance isn't as big. So he wouldn't have, like... Yeah, even if he's quite wealthy, I don't think that he has as much money as the others, basically. So I think he has furnished this a little bit sparsely, and I think that he has learned not to rely on money in the same way. So I think that he isn't spending money on lavish furniture, and yeah, maybe he doesn't have as much access to the like the inherited furniture from the Capp family either. maybe he has had to go and buy this furniture himself. So yeah, the style that I furnished this house with was quite different. And I also thought a little about how I perceive Kent, like before I have even started playing with him, of course. Things can always change. But I decided to make him the science teacher at university. And I know that he's a knowledge sim. I don't know if science is technically his hobby, like his one true hobby, but I think I'm gonna make it one of his hobbies at least, and one of his strongest ones. So this really is his science office at home, where he's sitting and working and doing his projects. It was quite important to put that in. And yeah, I think that he's one of the Sims in the vanilla game who has a slight preference towards males from the start. So I am going to make him gay as well, even though I'm going to randomize the others, I think. But him, I'm going to decide that he is gay. Just sort of makes sense with his story, I think. So I don't think that he really is focusing on family at all. I think that he's going to want to find a partner, but I don't think that he has thoughts of children or anything like that in his mind whatsoever. And I don't think that finding a partner is a priority for him either. I think that he is very much married to his work, because he's sort of found his escape, his space in this neighborhood away from his oppressive family, and he is really attached to that at this point. So I think that makes more sense. So yeah, we're gonna have to see what other Sims in this neighborhood are gonna be gay and who he could be interested in potentially. That's the fun part about randomizing as well, that anything can happen. And yeah, this was something that I thought about as I was editing this video, but I didn't think about as I was furnishing this, but I keep putting in the same mirror over and over again. It's that big IKEA mirror, and I think that I used it like 4 times in this house alone. So I've apparently grown quite attached to that mirror, and I really should start to think about maybe using another one. It's a nice mirror, it's a good size, it's pretty, but you know, I should spread my wings more, I think. It's easy to start to grab the same kind of furniture when you're renovating so many houses as I'm doing. You sort of get into the habit of what things to pick out. As for example, I'm always picking the same toilets for the bathrooms, but I really should try to expand my views a little bit. And thinking of expanding my views, I actually made a conscious effort in this house not to use the same sort of Shakerlicious kitchen that I've used in the first 3 houses. And the same thing actually in Goneril and Albany's house. So that was a little bit different at least. And I think that you can also see in this kitchen that I went with a more modern style for Kent than I did for Regan and Cornwall, when it comes to what appliances I used and so on. But I really love the way that this wallpaper looks. It's one of those that I got from the medieval smithy, and it's just so gorgeous. So it also makes me a little sad that I never used this in Goneril and Albany's house, because it's just so pretty. But as I said, I think that they have made quite extensive renovations, so I guess they got rid of it if it was there from the start. It's also going to be interesting to see what hobbies these Sims get, because that's also going to decide a little bit what I'm going to do with their characters and what they're going to do on their free time and what other things that I'm going to put into their houses. So it's going to be exciting to see. And I also look forward to actually placing down the Townie families and starting to figure them out, because that's also going to allow me to start building potential friendships with other Sims in the neighborhood. Because, this neighborhood in particular, if from the start, has so few families that, and of course the rivalry going on, that there's not really any natural friendships if you don't want to combine the Monty family and the Capp family. If you should try to keep the rivalry ongoing, that is. Of course, there's the Summer Dream family, and I saw that Titania and Oberon, they are pretty much friends with every Sim in the neighborhood, it feels like. So I guess there's that, but yeah, they have their own nefarious plans going on, so I don't think that really is a true friendship in that sense. I think that they have made an effort to befriend Sims in the neighborhood in order to get them to come over to their theater and to get power over them, basically, so that they can do the changeling switcheroo thingy with the adopted children and so on. And I guess that they're trying to get some influence in the neighborhood as well. So yeah, I'm almost done here with the furnishing of the house. Just putting in some finishing touches here with the lights, of course. And again, going with the more soft lights here. I just love the way that this wall light in particular sheds light in the rooms. It's so warm and cozy. And I also, of course, lit up some parts of the garden so that, well, I'm not going to use street lights very much in this neighborhood, so it's important that there's at least some light as you're moving outside when it's dark. And yeah, I'm gonna have to see if Regan and Cornwall are actually gonna be successful in getting a child. I mean, I think I'm gonna force it because I just feel like I want to keep their genetics ongoing. But at least now, I think that I'm gonna stick to just having one child for them. I just don't feel like they should have that many kids, so one is going to be good enough, and that also ties together with, you know, the size of the house, and there's just one room free. Of course they could have 2 children in the same room, but no, I just feel like one child should be good for them. Yeah, so this is the finished result of the house, and yeah, I really like actually the way that these yellow walls look on this house. I was glad that I went with that. Yeah, here you see the pictures of my favorite room. It was actually quite nice. And yeah, of course, I forgot to add that into the video, but I also put in this ceiling into the whole build as well. Somehow I have forgotten to do that in all of the builds so far, like add that into the video footage, because I always remember when I sit down to take screenshots and I see that popcorn ceiling, and I realized that, oh my god, I forgot again to do it. But yeah, at least I remembered, right? But yeah, that was it for this episode. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Take care. Bye.